there was an agreement on the proposal of the executive secretary to hold back-to-back the 11th COP of the Basel Convention and the 6 COPs of the Stockholm and Rotterdam Convention. There was also a decision common to the 3 COPs to hold back-to-back to one of these meetings an ExCOP. So the bureaus to the meetings agreed to that arrangement, and they agreed to the schedule of the meeting and to have all 4 meetings held together between 28th April and 10th of May 2013. So that leaves us, we're in a very short, this is not very far from us, we can say. The bureaus also agreed to have a high-level segment at the end of the meeting and to confirm that Geneva would be hosting the meetings. And I will very shortly take you through the program of the whole 2 weeks to explain in detail how the meetings will be organized. And if you have questions, maybe we can take questions on the program at that stage. If otherwise, we can also take them at the end of the meeting. But we are planning on full 2 weeks of meetings, starting with preparatory meeting on Saturday, 27th April. So that's before the meeting. And I will now switch on to a schedule that has been made available on our website since December, and which has the schedule that the bureaus agreed to at their meeting. You will see on the left-hand side that we have divided the schedule into morning and afternoon sessions, and following the days of the first week, so from Sunday 28th April to Saturday 4th of May. And also we will then later go to the second week of the schedule. And I will go through details through the second week. So to start off, you will see that on the first day, so Sunday 28th of April, we will open all 4 meetings. The meetings are color-coded, and you will see that the Basel Convention meeting is coded in green, the Rotterdam in blue, the Stockholm in orange, and the ExCOPs in purple. So on Sunday morning, we will open first the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm meeting. Here, the objective is simply to formally open the meetings, but not to address any substantive agenda items. Rather than we will open the meeting of the ExCOPs and go through the agenda that has been adopted by each of the ordinary meetings. The agenda of the ExCOP comprises all of the items you have here on the screen in purple. So organizational matters and substantive items gathered around 5 issues: the review of arrangements, the proposal for the organization of the Secretariat, joint activities, budget for joint activities, and information on the UNEP consultative process on financing chemicals and wastes. The first morning of the meeting will therefore be focusing on the organization of work first to be adopted and some organizational matters like credentials. But the main purpose will be to start discussions on the review of arrangements, the reorganization proposal, joint activities, and the UNEP consultative process. We expect that continuation of these discussions will be then referred to one or maybe several contact groups, depending on the views of party. In the afternoon session of the Sunday, it is expected that, well, we will reopen each of the ordinary sessions of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm COPs. The idea behind is to open the opportunity for what we've called simultaneous sessions of the ordinary meetings. This is a proposal that has been made by the bureaus, and the bureaus of all meetings thought that having the meetings back to back would have added value to consider jointly some issues that are of common interest. Among these issues of common interest, they have highlighted and identified technical assistance and financial resources. And the session of the afternoon is expected to look at technical assistance and financial resources under the three conventions. So each of the COP will open the agenda item on technical assistance and financial resources, and there will be a joint discussion during this afternoon's simultaneous sessions. It is expected that there will be discussion, but no decision taken at that stage. Rather, it is expected that each of the simultaneous sessions will have discussions and sometimes even creation of contact groups that will then report later during the week to the ordinary sessions of the COPs. So on Sunday afternoon, it is expected that there will be this technical assistance and financial resources discussion. On Monday morning, the proposal of the Bureau is to have a session on compliance and legal issues, and in the afternoon to have a session on wastes and POPs. There will also be some consideration of reporting issues in the afternoon of Monday, 29th April. So here is something that was really key to the Bureau's decision to organize the meeting that way, is to have this joint consideration of these issues. Following that, the program provides for the beginning of the Stockholm Convention COP. And the Stockholm Convention COP would start on the Tuesday, 30th of April, with its regular procedural issues, organizational matters, the election of officers, rules of procedures. And it would follow the program that you have on the screen. So we would look at organizational matters, rules of procedures, program of work and budget, and then go into substantive issues with the listing of chemicals, and here we have a proposal to list HPCD, implementation plans, etc. And the flow of the meeting would continue as it is projected on your screen. I'll come back to the possible changes to the schedule, but the anticipation is to have the Stockholm COP6 have its work on the 3 days of Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and that by Friday morning we would be able to start the Basel Convention COP in the same fashion, starting with organizational matters on the morning of Friday, 3rd of May, and continuing work throughout 3 days. Sorry. I will come back to some of these substantive issues later in the presentation. This is really to organize the planning. So the first week would start with the COPs, the ExCOP, meetings, and then the simultaneous sessions, 3 days of Stockholm COP, 2 days of Basel COP, and then we would go into the second week of the meeting with a day of rest on Sunday, 5th of May, where no formal meeting would be organized. And on Monday, we would continue and finish with the Basel Convention COP, with the orders of the agenda items as you have them on the screen. Finally, the Rotterdam COP would open its meeting on Tuesday, 7th of May, and run for 3 days. Now, as you will see, the Rotterdam COP will be following the same logic, so organizational matters, rules of procedures, and then going into substantive issues, and considering the substantive issues over the course of 3 days. And by the end of the second week, we will go into another arrangement for the high-level segment, which is highlighted in yellow. The Bureau, after having consultations with parties, agreed to have a high-level segment, and I'll come back to it at the end of the presentation. But the organization for the moment provides that the high-level segment will be held in the afternoon of Thursday, 9th of May, parallel to the Rotterdam COP, and on the Friday, 10th of May in the morning. These arrangements are likely to up under consideration by a small group, but I'll come back to it. But it's confirmed that the high-level segment will be at the end of Thursday and at the beginning of Friday. Once the high-level segment will be closed, we will then go back into the ExCOPs and consider the outcomes of the contact groups, and then go into a mode to adopt decisions, reports, and finalize and close all of the 4 meetings. So that's the plan that the Bureau has decided upon for the 2 weeks. It is available on our website. It is likely to be changed, but I'll come back to it now in the presentation. Again, to highlight that there will be some preparatory meeting on Saturday, 27th of April. And also to highlight that the organization of work is likely to change depending on the decision of the Bureau. It will be assessed how much progress has been made every day, and if there are any changes, they will be communicated very quickly. So we encourage delegates to really take into consideration the schedule of work to plan their travel, the organization of their delegations. There will be issues that will be covered throughout 2 weeks, for example, budgetary issues or issues related to synergies. The discussions on technical assistance and finance will happen very early on the first week for each of the COPs. So hopefully, with the planning, with the proposed schedule, you will already be able to have your planning well in place. Regional groups are also encouraged to work through the Bureau members and discuss with them any issues. Also, one important point to highlight in the organization of work is there will be a limitation to the number of contact groups running at the same time, so that small delegations will be able to participate in contact groups and in plenary discussions, and not to avoid too much duplication or overspread of work. A couple of practical arrangements. As for the previous meetings of the ordinary COPs, this will be a paperless meeting, so participants are invited to bring their laptops and to make use of the intranet and social media that will be available during the meeting. Pre-registrations have started since December of last year, and so far we have already over 950 participants registered, nearly 650 of them coming from 148 governments. We also have 170 registrations from NGOs and a number of other participants, such as IGOs or regional centers. Credentials are essential, of course, to government representatives attending. We highlight the fact that we've sent in a letter a template for preparing the credentials, and to remember that credential could cover up to 6 meetings, depending on whether your government is a party to each of the 3 conventions. So governments should have credentials for each of the conventions to which they are a party, but for the ordinary and extraordinary meetings. So that makes 6 meetings. We also invite you to send them in advance to our colleague Stephanie Cadet, whose contact details you'll find at the end of the presentation. In order to facilitate participation in the meeting by regions, we invite parties to consult within regions well in advance. We have sent a note to all focal points and official contact points to look at some of the nominations of officers and members of subsidiary bodies that will be required to be undertaken during the COP. These are, for example, bureaus of future COPs, members and experts of the POPs review committee or of the chemical review committee and other subsidiary bodies. This information is also available on our website, and we've provided a checklist which you will be able to find on the web. Talking about the web, I will now switch to show you, to guide you a bit through the information that we're trying to make available on our website. You will see, hopefully shortly, that you can access this information by any of the convention-specific websites. So the Stockholm website, the Rotterdam website, and the Basel Convention websites all have the same link to the pages of the meeting. And when you click on the pages of the meeting, you will come to a main page, and you will also have all of the different opportunities for additional information for the meetings. For example, the meeting documents for the 4 meetings are located on a similar page. You can find lists of documents to be made available, and all of the documents that are currently available in languages or in English only. Here you have, for example, the ExCOP documents, but we can also look at Rotterdam documents, Stockholm documents, etc. This website also will give you information on high-level segment, information for participant registration forms, side events, exhibitions, briefings, etc. I will now go back to the presentation, but if you have questions on the website, I'll be also happy to take them later. There has been an effort on the Secretariat side to reduce the number of documents and facilitate the preparation of representatives for these meetings. So we have reduced significantly the number of pages of documents and tried to streamline as much as possible these documents. And you have the figures here showing this reduction of the number of meeting documents. This takes me to the main issues to be considered by each of the ordinary COPs and the extraordinary meeting of the COPs. And here I will just highlight the slides and what is in them. But if you have specific questions, I will try and answer them myself or with the help of my colleagues, Marilyn and Alain and Frank, who are also attending. In case we cannot answer your question, we'll be happy to follow up by email. But to go back to the Basel COP will look at the follow-up to the Indonesian-Swiss country-led initiative that was adopted at COP10, and to consider a number of processes and outputs under the CLI, mainly the framework for the environmentally sound management of wastes, hazardous waste and other wastes, and consideration of a glossary of terms. Technical guidelines will also be under consideration for e-waste and for the environmentally sound management of POPs. Possible amendments to Annex 9 of certain specific types of waste to the Convention will also be there. The outcomes of the meeting of the ICC will be considered, as well as progress on the PACE initiative and on the technical assistance, including what will affect regional centers. For Rotterdam COP, there are a number of chemicals under consideration and one severely hazardous pesticide formulation. The 5 chemicals are on the industrial chemical side are crucityl asbestos, pentaBDEs, octaBDEs, and PFOS. And we have a pesticide azinphosmethyl under consideration, as well as a SHPF formulation for paraquat. There will also be consideration of the non-compliance and proposals made to improve information exchanges on exports and export notifications, and proposals to increase the number of final regulatory action. For the Stockholm Convention, there is a proposal to list hexabromociclododecan to Annex A to the Convention with a number of exemptions that have been decided by the POPs review, looked upon by the POPs Review Committee. Non-compliance will also be on the agenda. The effectiveness evaluation, DDT, the evaluation of the continued need for DDT, processes for evaluating specific exemptions or the need for specific exemptions and acceptable purposes for BDs and PFOS, as well as recommendations and conclusions from POPROC on alternatives to DDT and also FAN and PFOS in open applications. Regional centers will also be part of the focus of the technical assistance discussions, with an evaluation methodology to be considered and the re-endorsed regional centers. There are a number of financial issues on the agenda of the COP. The needs assessment for 2015 and 2019, the review of the financial mechanism, and the review of guidance to the financial mechanism. NIPS will also be looked at by the COP, in particular the newly available guidance for the updated NIPS and a number of other documents and processes. Reporting and technical assistance will also be part of the Stockholm Convention agenda. For the ExCOPs, we will be looking at the issues that have been put specifically on the agenda of the ExCOPs. So that starts with the review of arrangements, which will be the consideration of 2 reports on how the synergy arrangements have affected a number of objectives decided upon by parties in previous synergy decisions. The proposal of the UNEP Executive Director for the reorganization of the Secretariat will also be taken into consideration and discussed, and its sustainability as well. One of the main issues on the agenda of the ExCOPs will be program of work and the budgets for the 3 conventions. That will focus first on joint activities and the budgets for these joint activities, but it will also be an opportunity for governments to discuss the convention-specific budgets and the scenarios put forward in the different documents prepared by the secretariats. These documents have been made available now for some time on the website of the ExCOPs, and present together joint budgets, but also highlighting the specific budgets and proposals for each of the convention, thus respecting the legal autonomy of the conventions. There will also be consideration of the consultative process of the UNEP ED on financing wastes and chemicals. Finally, I will now talk briefly about the high-level segment and highlight that first, all of the arrangements for the high-level segments are not in place yet because there's a process and there are ongoing consultations through the bureaus. But as mentioned previously, the bureaus agreed at their meeting in December to have a high-level segment. There was a survey that was undertaken previously through the Secretariat, and there was a high response rate and a high support expressed through this survey for the high-level segment. It was confirmed to be held in the afternoon of Thursday and the morning of Friday, 10th of May. The objectives are here on the screen, but to gain momentum and to raise really the awareness on the different chemicals and waste issues covered by the 3 conventions, to encourage and discuss synergies, to raise the profile of chemicals, and then to share experiences and best practices. Invitations were sent to different ministries at the end of 2012. Copies were made available to missions. Funding has also been made available for 1 minister for each eligible country party to at least 1 convention. It is too late, unfortunately, to make requests for assistance, but we're glad to report that as of March, we have 75 ministers already registered. The Bureau was able to decide on the organization of the meeting, but they felt they had to go through further discussions on the themes and the practical arrangements. So they set up a small group of their members to continue discussing the arrangements together with the Secretariat. And there was an agreement that the theme for the high-level segment would focus on synergies and implementation of the three conventions at the national, regional, and global levels. So the small group has been working with the Secretariat on the development of a concept note on the theme, and that will serve as guidance for discussions, and this document will be made available as an ExCOP document in 2013. Again, financial resources have been made available for ministerial participation, and additional ministers are also supporting their travel or will be doing so at their own expenses. Currently, it is envisaged that on the Thursday afternoon and evening of the 9th May, we will have first a plenary opening of the high-level segment, and then ministers would gather around roundtables separately and discuss specific issues for specific roundtables. There would be a ministerial photo in the evening after these roundtables, a ceremony on the ban amendment under the Basel Convention, and then a working dinner hosted by Switzerland nearby. On Friday morning, the high-level segment would reconvene, and there would be a presentation of key messages from the different roundtables, and a moderator would then manage a discussion with a possible adoption of a ministerial declaration, as it is proposed by Switzerland. These arrangements are not finalized yet, but this is the proposal that is currently on the consideration by the group, and it is likely that the final formula will be something very similar to this. I'm now getting to the end of the presentation, so I'll just highlight a number of contact points of my colleagues in case you have specific questions. Regarding the registration and credential, it's Ms. Stephanie Cadet, and you have her email on the screen. For the high-level segment, the focal point is Laura Mitsaros of the Secretariat, and for travel arrangements, the two colleagues from FAO in Rome, Ms. Blanca Garza de Antonio and Ms. Inma Rodma Martin. I will then stop for now the presentation and take your questions. Thank you very much first for your attention and for following me through all of that wealth of information.